I'm self-obsessed. Not to say that I think that highly of myself, but I probably do. I think anyone who creates something, whether it's writing, music, painting, or performance, and shows it to the world is looking for validation. Writer-director Alejandro Iñárritu dissects creative validation in Birdman.
This is about being respected and validated, remember? That's what you told me!
By following the character Regan Thompson, a washed-up Hollywood actor who used to star in a fictional superhero franchise, and has now shifted to the theater for something supposedly more meaningful, adapting, directing, and starring in Raymond Carver's What We Talk About When We Talk About Love.
You wrote this adaptation?
I did, yeah.
And you're directing and starring in your adaptation. That's ambitious.
And it sounds a lot like Michael Keaton, right?
So you're going to play this washed-up Hollywood star who's famous for doing a trilogy of superhero films called Birdman. Did you go, okay, hang on a second.
So it's not autobiographical, but it's pretty darn
Oh, yeah,
close.
I mean...
It's weird.
Of course, it's amazing.
Did Batman haunt you at all?
No.
Did it make you revisit what happened with Batman Forever and you turning that down and how you felt afterwards?
No, but that sequence right there, that's, I mean, the rest is not really me because it's not how I am or live, but.
Now, I can't profess to know what Michael Keaton thinks of himself, but even if I keep my vanity a secret, it's still there. Regan Thompson projects his vanity through Birdman, a voice in his head that cuts through his mental defenses, sometimes telling him the truth.
So you're not a great actor, who cares?
Sometimes preying on his inferiority.
You are a god.
And this fluffing is personified in Regan's superpowers.
Look at that. These people don't know what you're capable of.
A light falls on one of his actors and he says,
I made it happen.
Oh, okay.
When he trashes his room, it's a chaotic display of power instead of a much more likely scenario of a man having a breakdown. And this pretty much sums it up.
This is where you belong. Above them all.
But let me back up a second.
Oh, hey, no, wait! What the?
In the last act of Birdman, there are 3 moments of potential suicide that are offset by a fantasy afterwards. Now, the film isn't literal. Regan obviously doesn't have superpowers, but the powers represent how he sees himself. These moments of suicide may not even occur at all. In fact, there are in-universe explanations for what actually happened.
Hey, hello, sir. Hello, sir, you did not pay me.
But to me, they each represent the different insecurities that artists struggle with. Depression and creativity might go hand in hand. But I can also admit I like to fantasize about dying just to imagine my death making an impact on people.
Oh God, really?
Yeah. And when it comes to Regan Thompson, it's not out of the question.
I tried to drown myself.
The first suicide is about success, or the lack of success. Regan craves admiration. We all do, but we also want to be admired for the right reasons. From the get-go, the artistic landscape is laid before us, choosing between the small and personal, thought to be artistically genuine,
What do we talk about when we talk about love?
and the big and commercial, thought to be superficial.
Bones rattling, big, loud, fast. Look at these people, look at their eyes. They're all sparkling. They love the shit. They love blood. They love action. Not this talky, depressing, philosophical bullshit.
And that right there is a big oversight. The belief that popcorn blockbusters are intellectually subordinate to thoughtful indie no-budget projects. But more to the point, how do we measure success? He had money, he had recognition, he had fame, everything you could associate with success. And it seems to follow him around.
Who was this guy? He used to be Birdman.
But Regan doesn't care, because what he's famous for doesn't align with his idea of fame. He doesn't want to do another Birdman sequel.
That's why 20 years ago I said no to Birdman 4. That's why.
Birdman 4! You do Birdman 4!
He doesn't want to answer embarrassing tabloid questions.
Now, is it true you've been injecting yourself with semen from baby pigs
I'm sorry.
as
what?
a method of facial rejuvenation?
Where did you read that?
It was tweeted by @Prostate Whispers.
And when he's forced to march through the streets of New York in his underwear and he gets thousands of hits, he dismisses it, because he has a niche idea in his mind about what he wants to be famous for. The problem is Regan isn't doing a stage play because he enjoys doing it. It's just another form of self-promotion. He's not really interested in the artistic medium or provoking thought. He still wants to be admired. And that's where Mike Shiner comes in.
Popularity is the slutty little cousin of prestige, my friend.
Okay, I don't even know what the fuck that means, so.
Mike is introduced as a last-minute replacement actor, and he's a target of jealousy for Regan, who has a lot of jealousy to begin with.
gonna be Clooney's face on the front page. Not mine.
In the artistic community, competition is a weird thing. The people that make you feel ashamed of your average abilities are phenomenal, and you're going to love their work. And that's what Riggin, and statistically most of us are, average. Riggin seems like a decent actor, better than Ralph.
The kind of love I'm talking about is the kind of love I'm talking about. You don't try and kill people.
But not as good as Mike.
The kind of love that I'm talking about is absolute. The kind of love that I'm talking about, you don't try to kill people.
And eventually their personal and professional relationship progresses to rivalry, when Mike starts to challenge Riggin's real reasons for doing the play, and what constitutes a real artist.
Why don't you get your wings in your fucking bird suit, man?
Mike is Mr. Truth.
Truth or dare?
Truth.
You're boring.
Truth is always interesting.
He's the complete opposite of Riggin. He doesn't care if people like him, because Mike represents, you know, the true artist that gives anything and everything for total purity. He's revered in the theater community, the critics love him, and he's a better actor than Riggin. Or at least he's acting for the right reasons. But at the heart of jealousy is entitlement, truly believing that I deserve better.
We don't belong in this shithole.
That if I'm in a bad situation, it's just a fluke on my way to stardom, while not recognizing that everyone else has a dream or a passion too. And that's applicable to anyone.
I think every human being can be attached to any of these guys. You don't have to be an actor to do that. I really think that I was not interested to make a film about actors or craft of the actors. So I was interested in human beings that were basically looking for affection and love.
Riggin's daughter, Sam, actually resents that he ever made her feel special, because in the end, she isn't. We're raised to believe that we're going to be special, and especially in the age of the internet, it feels like anyone can be. I mean, it's at your fingertips, right? But in most cases, especially in artistic expression, that's not really true. And this concept eats away at Riggin, that he's not very good, and his negative self-talk either reinforces that or paints an entirely different picture.
You could jump right back into that suit if you wanted to. We're not dead.
Look at me. Look at this. Look. I look like a turkey with leukemia. I'm fucking disappearing.
For artists, what we make is so tied to our identity.
I'm a fucking actor.
That when the art fails, it feels like we've failed. So when all of the previews fail, and his nemesis is dating his daughter, and the critic Tabitha Dickinson says,
I'm gonna kill your play.
It pushes Riggin to an all-time low. He spends the night getting drunk, sleeping in public, and then he goes up to the roof.
Hey! Is this for real, or are you shooting a film?
A film!
You people are full of shit.
Riggin thinks he's about to take flight, but look at how the reality is presented.
We have to end it on our own terms, with a grand gesture, flames, sacrifice, Icarus.
Do a flip!
You can do it.
Birdman sounds like he's encouraging Riggin to jump off the roof. Like if he can't get attention through art, he can get it through suicide. Assuming he kills himself, everything that happens afterward seems like wish fulfillment.
You're so good. I mean it.
He has a meaningful reconciliation with his ex-wife. Everyone is raving about the first act, and after all that he suffered, he's finally able to give an honest performance.
Hey!
They were on my chest and all over my legs. The water was full of jellyfish. They were all over me. I had to fight my way out of the water and went up to the beach. I was rolling around like a maniac in the sand, crying.
Which brings us to... The second suicide is about sacrifice. Riggin has a reminder in his dressing room. A thing is a thing, not what is said of that thing. And that's true, but without feedback, how can anyone improve? And at what point do we say, this is all I've got? Is that enough?
I'm tired, dude. I can't do this anymore, Jake. I can't. That's a joke, right? You know, I don't think this is for me. Oh, they're laughing at me.
I have a strange relationship with art and critic because I try to do both. I want to create structure and emotional feeling, and each video essay feels like a personal short film, but it's in service of critiquing someone else's hard work. So then what warrants a healthy critique? What's the difference between a rant, a meaningless review, and constructive criticism? Well, I think analyzing work should help people learn. Mike deconstructs the characters, the dialogue, and the situation, and is able to find a great moment of discovery.
Yes!
Yes, the kind of love that I'm talking about, it is absolute. The kind of love that I'm talking about, you don't try to kill people.
By analyzing it and picking at it, they're able to get somewhere better. But what good is Birdman's belligerent nagging?
We should have done that reality show they offered us. The Thompsons.
Shut up.
That would have been good.
Shut up.
Crazy, druggy, wise-ass daughter. Milfy wife with the perky tits. People would have wanted to see that.
Shut up.
More than I can say for this piece of shit.
Shut up.
Birdman is trying to convince him to sell out, to work less, that he's a god. And that doesn't breed good work. It breeds, well...
Birdman, the Phoenix rises. Pimple-faced gamers screaming in their pants.
When critics basically will like the film to be as they want it, instead to just see the film as it is and try to understand what the guy tried to achieve instead of what they would have done, that can be a conflict.
There's an illusion that objective critique exists, but we all bring our subjective experiences to everything. I think the job of the critic, though, is to be thorough in explaining your feelings. If a plot point or a character doesn't work for me, I want to explain why I feel that way. But being critiqued hurts, because you've made something, and someone else can overlook your hard work and intent with the stroke of a pen.
There's nothing in here about technique. There's nothing in here about structure. Nothing in here about intention. It's just a bunch of crappy opinions backed up by even crappier comparisons. You write a couple of paragraphs, and you know what? None of this costs you fucking anything.
And that work can feel like a prison, too. Mike may have honest motives for acting, but his choice to be completely authentic paints an unpleasant way to live. To actually be drunk ruins a rehearsal.
I'm drunk? Yes, I'm drunk. I'm supposed to be drunk. Why aren't you drunk?
To actually try to have sex on stage ruins his relationship.
You can't get it up in 6 months and now you want to fuck me in front of 800 strangers?
Look, I need it to feel real, okay? I need that intensity. You've known that about me from the beginning.
Mike's work makes him a non-entity in real life, and that doesn't seem like a great way to live. Or worse, only using life as inspiration for art and never fully being present.
I really wish I wouldn't have videotaped your birth, though.
Why?
Guys, I just missed the moment. I don't have it. I should have just been there with the two of you. You know, just the three of us.
Riggin perpetually shuts out his real life and mortgages his house to finance his passion project. It feels like to do anything unique or do anything great, you have to make sacrifices. So Riggin's suicide is the ultimate sacrifice. He gives his life for his art because that's all he has left. Now the reality is that he probably died right there. Everyone thought, God, that was horrible, and moved on. But in Riggin's fantasy, he survives only to get everything he ever wanted.
Thompson has unwittingly given birth to a new form which can only be described as super-realism. Blood was spilled both literally and metaphorically by artist and audience alike. Real blood. The blood that has been sorely missing from the veins of the American theater.
And the last scene follows the only break in the one-take method. But maybe he did survive. So why does he jump out of the window at the end? The last suicide is about relevance.
And let's face it, Dad, you are not doing this for the sake of art. You are doing this because you want to feel relevant again. Well, guess what? There is an entire world out there where people fight to be relevant every single day, and you act like it doesn't exist. You're doing this because you're scared to death, like the rest of us, that you don't matter. And you know what? You're right. You don't. It's not important, okay? You're not important. Get used to it.
As much as I love creative expression, it's also a legitimate way to beg for relevance and attention. So why do we do it? Why do we make things? Or rather, why are we obsessed with making things that will last forever? You know, I read books and I watch films by people who have died, and I want to be remembered in the same way.
Intimidating, isn't it? Do you have any idea that people who have walked on these boards before you?
But there's no guarantee that anything will be here forever.
These dashes represent the 6 billion years that the Earth has been around. And so each dash represents 1,000 years. And this is how long humans have been here. 150,000 years. I think they're trying to remind us that that's all our ego and self-obsession are worth.
Part of why I like the one-take method is the ability to limit ownership. In a traditional film with traditional editing, you'd probably call a shot with a character in it that character shot. But because the images in Birdman flow like a stream of consciousness, this isn't Riggin's shot. It's only his for the moment.
You had a career, Dad, before the third comic book movie. before people started to forget who was inside that bird costume. You were doing a play based on a book that was written 60 years ago for 1,000 rich old white people whose only real concern is going to be where they go to have their cake and coffee when it's over.
So the camera moves have a way of expressing life moving on, with or without you. But it's easy to chase something, to struggle against something. A scary thought is what happens when you get everything you want and you don't care.
This is what you wanted, wasn't it?
What happens when you climb the ladder and shrug? And that's where Riggin is at the end. He put so much effort into getting what he wanted that he never stopped to ask if he really wanted it. There's a little bit of symbolism running throughout. Flowers represent admiration. When Sam buys him flowers, she leaves a note that says they didn't have whatever you wanted. When his play is finally successful,
Look at all these roses. And you hate roses.
and at the end, Sam brings him lilacs.
I can't smell them.
The way I see it, Riggin has been chasing admiration his entire life, and when he finally gets it, it doesn't even matter. But maybe there's joy in irrelevance, embracing who he really are.
You're anything but invisible. You're big. You're kind of a great mess. It's like a candle burning on both ends, but it's beautiful.
But Riggin can't handle that. Birdman, his exhausting negative voice, is still there. So Riggin kills himself because it's the only way to stop all of the noise. The fantasy is that his daughter finally looks up to him. But maybe I have the wrong attitude. Maybe there's something a little more metaphorical and a little more hopeful. You could read the ending as Riggin giving up his pursuit of vanity. When he focuses more on other people, building connections, and giving less attention to audiences or the Birdman voice in the back of his mind, what he wants actually comes to fruition, and slowly he whittles down what's important. Maybe Birdman's presence at the end isn't a plague for Riggin, but a good riddance, showing that he doesn't need Birdman anymore.
Bye-bye. And fuck you.
But whether he wants to impress one person or several, he's still chasing notoriety, desperately crying, "Notice me, notice me, notice me."
Put the gun down. She doesn't love you anymore.
You don't, do you?
No.
And you never will. I don't exist. I'm not even here.